What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Saturday, March 12th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 7-game slate tonight. So let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Stephen Curry from the Golden State Warriors playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing point guards, and Stephen Curry has averaged 46.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 31% usage rate. He's projected at 48.2 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's 10,000 DraftKings salary, 700 less on FanDuel, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 232 points scored in this game. So this is a good game to stack, and Stephen Curry has scored 55 and 33 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 37 and 35 minutes. And I like this pick because, well, you know what? Out of the last 4 games versus the Bucks, Stephen Curry only broke 50 fantasy points 1 out of those 4 games, scoring 31, 55, 35, and 40 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Bucks. For some reason, I thought his player versus team history was much better than that, but I do think that Stephen Curry steps up here tonight in what should be a high-scoring game. So I like Stephen Curry here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, another point guard that I like, you want to save some salary on this slate, take a look at Monte Morris from the Denver Nuggets playing the Toronto Trail. Jeez, my brain is a little bit mixed up today. Playing the Toronto Raptors, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing point guards. Monte Morris has averaged 25.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He's projected at 25.7 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5 times value. He's 5,200 DraftKings salary, 400 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 225 points scored in this game, and Monte Morris has been on fire. I mean, he's been on fire like the past 4 out of 5 games. He scored 30, 35, 38, and 36 fantasy points in his last 4 games. And he also scored 32 fantasy points in his last game versus the Raptors. So his price is still pretty low, considering he's putting up 30 plus fantasy points for the last 4 games in a row. So I like Monte Morris here versus the Toronto Raptors. Okay, everyone, it's time to announce the winner of our weekly PayPal giveaway. And the winner is Latrice Murchison. Latrice Murchison, congratulations. You are the winner of this week's $25 PayPal giveaway. Please reply to our comment to collect your prize. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
All you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. Now, sticking with that Milwaukee Golden State Warriors game, I like Chris Middleton from the Milwaukee Bucks playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing shooting guards. Chris Middleton has averaged 37.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He's projected at 39.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $7,800 DraftKings salary, $100 less on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 232 points scored in this game, and Chris Middleton has scored 39, 43, and 65 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 36, 29, and 35 minutes. Oh, and this is the player versus team history I was thinking about. It wasn't Stephen Curry. It was Chris Middleton, who scored 43, 42, 50, 42, and 22 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Golden State Warriors. Chris Middleton hasn't scored under 38 fantasy points in his last 5 games, and he's scored 42 or more fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Warriors. So I like Chris Middleton here versus the Golden State Warriors. Now, you want to save some salary on DraftKings at the shooting guard position? This is a guy who's been on fire. Take a look at Jordan Poole from the Golden State Warriors playing the Milwaukee Bucks. So I really love this game. I'm probably going to have at least 2 players from this game in my lineup. And the Milwaukee Bucks have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, give up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards, also eligible at the point guard position. Jordan Poole has averaged 28.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 25% usage rate. He's projected at 29.6 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. Now, he's only $5,700 DraftKings salary, but he is $1,000 more on FanDuel. So this would be a DraftKings play for me. And Jordan Poole has scored 39, 34, and 50 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 34, 29, and 34 minutes. So I like Jordan Poole here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento Kings playing the Utah Jazz, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing small forwards, also eligible at the power forward position. Harrison Barnes has averaged 30.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He's projected at 31.8 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 33 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's $6,600 DraftKings salary, $500 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 231.5 points scored in this game, and Harrison Barnes has scored 32, 29, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games. But I like this pick because he's playing monster minutes, played 39, 37, and 38 minutes in the last 3 games, and he's got a good track record here versus the Jazz, scored 39, 31, and 50 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Jazz. So I like Harrison Barnes here versus the Utah Jazz.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I got a value play for you here at the power forward position. This is a DraftKings value play. Take a look at Rui Hachimura from the Washington Wizards, playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 6th worst defense overall. They give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Rui Hachimura has averaged 17.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 19 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He's projected at 18.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.8 times value. He is only $3,200 DraftKings salary, $1,400 more on FanDuel. So I love that DraftKings price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 219 points scored in this game, and Rui Hachimura has scored 27 and 25 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 25 and 24 minutes. So his minutes per game have ticked up the past couple of games, and so has his production, and he's still super cheap on DraftKings in a good matchup. Now it is a back-to-back, but he's averaging 0.91 fantasy points per minute. If he can get 20 minutes or more here, he should be able to crush value on DraftKings. So I like Rui Hachimura here versus the Portland Trailblazers. Okay, moving on to the center position. So you got some studs on this slate. Giannis Antetokounmpo versus the Golden State Warriors, who's played pretty well versus the Warriors, scored 68 fantasy points versus the Warriors in his last game. You got Nikola Jokic versus the Toronto Raptors, who hasn't really played super well versus the Raptors. 3 out of his last 5 games, only 42 fantasy points or less. And then you got Karl Anthony Towns versus the Miami Heat, but he's on a back-to-back and he hasn't played super well versus the Heat either. So I think out of those 3 center studs, I would like Giannis Antetokounmpo the best, but I do prefer Chris Middleton in that matchup because of his player versus team history. So I'm going to look elsewhere at the center position, and the guy that I'm going to go to here, he is on a back-to-back, but he has had a lot of success versus this team, and his salary is still pretty low. So if you are interested in playing this guy, even though he's on a back-to-back, take a look at Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz, playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 3rd worst defense overall. They give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing centers. Rudy Gobert has averaged 41.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He's projected at 40.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $7,800 DraftKings salary, $300 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 231.5 points scored in this game. And Rudy Gobert has scored 45, 23, and 34 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 22, and 34 minutes. But he has played pretty well versus the Kings. He scored 45, 49, 49, 40, and 38 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Kings. It's a great matchup. So I like Rudy Gobert here versus the Sacramento Kings.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again and good luck.